You stand on a border bridge, 1337. Envoys murmur canon law and count dynastic heirs. The river slaps the pilings. Tar and wet rope sting your nose. Spears point down the rail. Two courts face each other, each with ledgers and seals. Your name sits on a parchment tied with red thread. If the cart with silver is late, they halt the handover. If it arrives, you will step forward and never step back. One delay can break the pact. Your attendants check the trunks. Guards lift lids and weigh coins. A herald reads the clause that fixes the hour. The scribe repeats it twice. A bishop nods. The wind pushes your veil across your lips. You taste salt and hemp. The captain says the bridge belongs to no king. The middle plank marks the line. When you reach it, your old nurse must stop. The new chamberlain will take your hand. Are you ready to be traded by the book? Witnesses wait for a signal. 3 hours earlier, the courier reached the ford. He carried the final list of gifts, roots, and oaths. He said the dispensation was valid. He said the kinship chart held. He said the pact required an exchange before sunset. The treasurer frowned. A chest was missing. A storm held the ship beyond the headland. The council argued about grace periods. The marshal said no. The clause left no room. The time stood. Back to the bridge. The two lines advance and stop. First, the chests pass between captains. Seals crack. Weights thud. A clerk notes every hinge and broken nail. Then the scrolls pass. Terms change hands. The heralds trade copies. Witnesses mark their names. The bishop blesses the act. The captain checks the sun with a disc of brass. He says the girl moves when the shadow touches the nail. A breath can cost a province. She was 13. Her tutors framed this day as duty. They taught her to step when called, to speak when prompted, to hold her eyes low before lords. They taught the words of consent. They warned her not to sign without counsel. They drilled her to greet the new ladies by rank. They told her that silence would keep her safe. None of it gave her power. All of it kept the treaty clean. Orders travel faster than comfort. Earlier that morning, the Queen Mother counted the dowry in a side room. She traced the line that tied the second payment to safe roads in winter. She asked if the roads were clear. The seneschal said raiders crossed the marsh last week. The mother closed the book and said nothing. She sent a note to the border. She wrote that the captains must not delay for fear. The line was firm. The hour was near. Back to the bridge. Drums knock once. The captain lifts his hand. The girl steps to the midline. Her nurse stops on the plank. The new chamberlain stands 1 pace away. The bishop whispers the name of the groom. The river throws spray at their boots. The wind shoves the banners toward the foreign bank. The herald reaches for the girl's wrist. The nurse releases it. The chamberlain reaches too. A single touch decides the road. Across the rail, a rider arrives with a torn pennon. He shouts about the missing chest. The treasurer raises his palm and calls for a halt. The captain points to the sun and touches the nail. The herald says the hour binds all men. The rider says the silver has not landed. The chamberlain says the clause governs the bride, not the coin. The council splits into 2 knots of fur and steel. The herald's staff rises above the crowd. The captain looks at the girl. The bishop opens his book. The treasurer grips the ledger. The river noise climbs. The nurse bows her head and steps back. The chamberlain waits, hand open, eyes fixed on the mark. Do they complete the exchange before the silver arrives? You stand on the plank at midline. The chamberlain's palm waits. The treasurer shouts about the missing chest. The captain taps the nail that marks the hour. The bishop lifts his book. The herald says the clause binds the bride, not the coin. Your nurse loosens her grip. The chamberlain closes his hand on your wrist. You cross the mark. The exchange is done. The river keeps moving. The question ends with a single step. A seal cracks on the ledger. The clerk writes that payment 3 is late. He notes the weight of each chest that did arrive. He adds the hour of transfer and the names of witnesses. The captain orders the lines to separate. Your old women bow and back away. Your new escort turns you toward the foreign road. The banners on your side shift color. The wind takes them. Paper decides who stands behind you. 2 hours later, the train clears the ridge. Wheels grind in ruts. The smell of wet leather rides the air. A messenger gallops beside the litter and whispers that the groom is delayed by swollen rivers. The marshal says the proxy stands ready. If the groom cannot reach the abbey in time, the right will proceed with his man. The herald nods. He guards the ring as if it were a treaty. One absence never stops a plan. Back to the road. You count milestones. Riders flank the wagons with the jewels and linens. The tutor recites the greetings you must use on arrival. The new ladies correct your accent. They smile without warmth. A scribe asks you to repeat your date of birth. He writes it down. The nurse rides behind, silent. She will leave you at the next gate. The map has no path backward. The train halts at an abbey guest house before dusk. The steward inspects the beds and bolts the shutters. A priest takes your consent in a small room with 2 candles. He asks if you agree without fear. You say yes. He asks again. You say yes again. The scribe copies your words. The marshal signs as witness. Outside, guards change. Inside, the ring stays in wax. Consent must be written before it is heard. The narrative now turns to her. The princess had crossed the bridge at the fixed hour. She had become the hinge of a pact. Canon law allowed marriage at 12 for a girl and 14 for a boy. But custom often separated promise from possession. Where kings doubted roads and seasons, they married by proxy first. A trusted lord took the vow in the groom's place. Later, the groom confirmed it by touch and word. The law made room for weather, war, and chance. 3 days earlier, the council had secured a papal dispensation for kinship in the 4th degree. The parchment traveled with the convoy in a case of leather. A bishop's clerk guarded it. He carried another sealed packet as well. Its label read, "Impediments alleged." The clerk refused to explain it. He had orders to deliver it to the consistory if certain words were spoken during the rite. No one at the guest house knew those words. The marshal did not ask. A packet can unmake a wedding. Back to the road at dawn, rain starts. The horses labor on clay. The steward reheats broth and reports that the 3rd dowry chest still has not landed at the coastal port. The Queen Mother, far away, hears the news and changes the seating plan for the first feast. The princess will sit 1 chair further from the dais. The message rides to the convoy. The tutor folds it and says nothing. Small chairs teach large lessons. At noon, the towers of the city rise from the marsh. Bells carry over water. The escort turns toward the abbey gate for the quiet rite. The proxy waits in the chapter house with witnesses. The bishop's clerk dismounts and checks the seals on his case. He watches the proxy's face. He counts the witnesses again. He asks if anyone has heard of a prior promise made by the bride. The question stops the room. The marshal shakes his head. The tutor swallows. The proxy looks to the bishop. The clerk touches the 2nd packet, marked impediments alleged. He says he must open it if the word pre-contract is raised in the chapter house. Who dared send a sealed claim that could void the union? Back to the chapter house. Wax beads on the rim of the candle. The bishop's clerk repeats the question. Has anyone heard of a prior promise? A pre-contract voids a union under canon law. Consent must be free. Impediments must be cleared before vows. Silence fills the room. The proxy waits with the ring. Paper can halt a crown. The marshal answers first. No pre-contract is known. The tutor says the same. The proxy nods and looks to the bishop. The clerk touches the leather case again. He says he holds a sealed packet. Its label reads, "Impediments alleged." If the word pre-contract is spoken by any party, he must open it. He watches every face in turn. One word can change the rite. The princess sits straight. She is 13. Her duty is public. Her fear is private. She folds her hands and waits for the bishop. The Queen Mother's letter lies in the steward's pouch. It orders the ceremony to proceed by proxy if needed. It also orders the seating to shift one chair at the feast. The third dowry chest is still at sea. Small slights warn of larger moves. The bishop speaks. He declares the dispensation valid for kinship in the fourth degree. He recites the bans as posted. He asks again if any impediment is known. No one answers. He signals the proxy to step forward. The proxy names the groom. He places the ring on the cushion. He vows in the groom's name. Witnesses listen and sign. A vow can travel without its speaker. Canon law allowed this path. Marriage by proxy held when distance, war, or flood blocked the groom. Later, the groom confirmed the union by touch. If he refused, a court decided the remedy. Dowries and dower rights turned on that choice. A consistory could unmake what a proxy made, but not without cause. Pre-contract counted. Consanguinity without dispensation counted. Force counted. The list was short, but sharp. Rules shape the trap as much as the escape. An hour later, the rite ends. Bells strike the quarter. Outside, rain thickens. Inside, the scribe dries ink with sand. He notes the witnesses, the ring, the proxy's words. He copies the time and place. He adds a line. No impediment alleged. The clerk closes the leather case. He does not break the second seal. He does not explain why he brought it to the room. Seals hide more than words. At sunset, a rider reaches the abbey yard. He shouts that the missing chest has landed. The treasurer takes the news to the bishop. The Queen Mother hears it by lantern light in a different city. She smiles, then orders the feast to proceed as planned. The chair does not move back. She keeps the slight in place. The princess will read it with her eyes and say nothing. A paid debt does not erase a mark. 2 weeks earlier, the sealed packet began its journey. The groom's council had drafted it in a side chamber. They listed the name of a local heiress. They wrote that the groom had once promised her marriage in words of the present tense. They cited witnesses ready to swear it. They addressed the packet to the bishop's clerk. They instructed him to carry it to every stage. Insurance is not always honest. They did not intend to open it today. They intended to carry it until the second dowry payment cleared in winter. If the silver lagged, the packet would open. If the marriage soured, the packet would open. If the groom needed an exit, the packet would open. The council called it prudence. The Queen Mother called it order. The proxy called it none of his affair. The clerk called it duty. The secret sat under his hand the entire time. Back to the chapter house. The candles burn low. The princess stands. The proxy bows and steps aside. The bishop raises his hand in blessing. The clerk slides the leather case under his cloak. The marshal orders the escort to the palace gate. The tutor whispers the correct greeting for the Queen Mother. A page brings a cloak still damp from the rain. Then, the abbey door swings inward. 2 men enter in travel-stained cloaks. Mud marks their boots. One wears the groom's colors. He says the rivers fell. He says the road opened at dusk. He says the groom has reached the outer gate and waits to confirm the vows tonight. If the groom speaks now, who dares say pre-contract? Back to the chapter house. Rain taps the glass. The groom crosses the threshold with mud on his boots. He bows to the bishop and the queen's proxy. He looks once at the princess and then at the ring on the cushion. He asks if the rite by proxy has been done. The clerk answers yes. The groom nods. He says he will confirm the vows now, in person, and in the present tense. A word now will bind more than paper. The bishop clears the aisle. The proxy steps back. The groom takes the ring. He speaks the formula slowly, naming her, naming himself, and naming the consent that makes a marriage. Witnesses lean in. The scribe writes every syllable. The clerk keeps one hand on the leather case that holds the sealed packet. He does not move to open it. He watches the Queen Mother's man for a sign. Silence can be strategy. confirmation by touch and present words, answers distance and delay. Canon law admits it as proof of marriage where proxy began it. Once confirmed, only certain grounds can unmake it. True pre-contract, prohibited kinship without dispensation, force, or holy orders. The council knows that list by heart. They also know the weight of reputation. To cry pre-contract now would stain the groom before his own court. Timing shapes guilt more than facts. An hour later, torches hiss in the palace yard. The convoy reaches the gate under a curtain of rain. The Queen Mother receives them in the Great Hall. Musicians hold their breath. The steward announces that the missing chest has landed and that all seals have held. The Queen Mother says the feast will proceed. She does not change the seating. The princess sees the empty space beside the dais and reads the message. A chair can teach a dozen lessons. The groom salutes his mother and offers the copy of the dispensation. She accepts it without a word. She asks if the consent was confirmed. He says yes. She looks to the clerk. The clerk bows and taps the closed case. He carries the sealed packet that alleges a pre-contract with a local heiress. He has not opened it. He waits for instruction. The Queen Mother turns to the treasurer and asks about winter roads. One packet outweighs a chest of silver. Now the secret stands clear. The groom's council prepared the pre-contract packet as leverage, not truth. They crafted an exit that could be used if payments lagged, if alliances shifted, or if a better match appeared. They paid for witnesses ready to swear. They sent the packet with the clerk to every right. The girl did not know. Her mother did not know. Only the inner circle and the clerk held the cord that could yank the marriage back to court. Control hides inside lawful forms. 3 hours later, the feast begins. The princess sits one chair down from the dais. The Queen Mother's eyes do not soften. The groom raises a cup and speaks of roads, ports, and the coming harvest. He does not speak of love. The proxy sits far down the table. The bishop blesses the dishes. The clerk eats little. He keeps the leather case on his lap beneath the tablecloth. A smile can promise winter storms. 2 weeks earlier, while the packet was drafted, another plan moved in silence. The princess's father negotiated a credit with merchants in Bruges. He pledged revenues from a spring fair to cover delays at sea. The letters move now through Hans ports, gathering seals and witnesses. When they arrive, the treasurer will have less need for leverage. The Queen Mother does not yet know this. The clerk does not either. Money travels slower than suspicion. Back to the hall. The steward sets a bowl of pike before the princess. The tutor prompts greetings for each lord by rank. The groom's captain leans in and quietly orders her old nurse to leave for a different lodging at curfew. The nurse bows and obeys. The princess keeps her face smooth. The scribe notes the change of household in the margin of his book. A household can change with a single sentence. Near midnight, the bishop's clerk rises from the table. He finds the Queen Mother in the screens passage. He asks if she commands the packet to be opened in consistory at dawn. She weighs the gain. Leverage over winter payments against the stain of a public claim. She weighs the loss. A daughter-in-law made an object of suspicion on the first night. She says, "Not yet." The clerk bows. He returns to the table with the seal unbroken. The groom lifts his cup again. The musicians begin a slow air. The rain stops on the window ledge. At the edge of the light, a courier steps into the hall with a letter stamped from Bruges, who sent a promise that could erase the council's leverage in a single line. Back to the hall. The courier kneels in wet boots. Rain drips from his hood onto the flags. He holds a letter sealed with green wax. The Bruges merchants stand behind their marks. They promise credit against the spring fair. They guarantee the winter payment. The treasurer breaks the seal and reads twice. He nods. He says the silver is covered. A line of ink can move an army. The Queen Mother takes the page. She reads the sums. She notes the names of aldermen and their bonds. She does not smile. She lifts her eyes to the clerk. He still guards the leather case. Inside lies the packet that alleges a pre-contract. It can void the union if opened at the right moment. It can haunt the bride if kept alive. The seal waits for a command. She says the council meets at dawn in consistory. The bishop bows. The groom lowers his cup. The musicians fall silent. The princess keeps her hands still. The treasurer folds the Bruges letter into his sleeve. Servants clear the board. The hall empties by rank. The clerk does not sleep. He holds the case on his knees in the screen's passage until the candles fail. A choice can look like a formality. At first light, the bell of the abbey strikes. The air smells of damp stone and old wax. The consistory court sits in a side chapel. Benches scrape. The bishop takes his chair. Notaries cut quills. The groom stands to one side. The queen mother sits straight, fur dark against linen. The princess stands behind her tutor. The clerk keeps the case against his ribs. No one speaks before the bishop. He opens with the marriage already confirmed by word and touch. He records the proxy. He reads the dispensation for kinship. He asks if any impediment is now alleged. He asks about force. He asks about prior vows. He asks about fraud. His voice is steady. The notary writes each question and leaves space for answers. One answer can end the day. The treasurer steps forward. He says the Bruges letter secures the winner sums. He lays the page on the table. He names the sureties. He names the ports. He names the fare. The bishop nods. He records the guarantee. He asks again if any impediment is alleged. The groom looks at his mother. The hall hears only the scratching of the quill. Silence can weigh more than iron. The queen mother lifts her hand. The clerk steps close. He places the leather case on the table. He shows the red seal. He states the order that brought it. He states the rule that governs it. If pre-contract is claimed, he must break it. If not, he must carry it sealed until dismissed. He looks at the queen mother. He does not look at the princess. The wax is warm under his thumb. The princess breathes through her nose. She repeats her tutor's words in her head. She agreed without fear. She spoke the formula. She stood at the bridge when the hour struck. She crossed the plank when told. She gave the proxy, her consent. She heard the groom confirm it. She has done each thing asked. Her fate still hangs on a packet she has never touched. Obedience does not grant safety. The groom clears his throat. He says no pre-contract binds him. He says no vow holds his hand but this one. He looks at the bishop when he says it. He does not look at the clerk. The bishop records his words. He turns to the queen mother. He asks if the crown alleges any impediment. He waits. The notary lifts his pen. Timing is a blade with two edges. The queen mother studies the Bruges letter again. She weighs the sums. She weighs the rumor that would follow a public claim. She weighs the leverage she would lose if she lets the seal go back to the archives unopened. She closes her eyes once, quick. She opens them and looks at the clerk. He moves his knife toward the wax. The bishop holds up his hand. He says the record will show either silence or a petition. He says the hour does not wait. The groom's captain shifts his boot. The tutor grips the prayer book. The princess keeps her shoulders level. The clerk's blade rests against the seal. Does she order the packet broken before the court writes the final line? Back to the consistory. The bishop waits. The clerk's knife rests on the seal. The queen mother raises her hand and says the crown alleges no impediment. The clerk withdraws the blade. The packet stays closed. The bishop writes the final line. Marriage confirmed. Proxy validated. Dispensation recorded. No pre-contract alleged. Records outlast rumors. The groom repeats his consent for the register. The bishop blesses them. The notary enters the Bruges credit into the act. The treasurer adds the names of sureties and ports. The clerk returns the leather case to his cloak. He will deliver it to the archive with the seal intact. He will not list its contents. He will only list that it exists. Sealed things still cast shadows. The hall empties by order. The Queen Mother speaks to the princess without warmth and without insult. She says the court will expect a public reading at noon. She orders the steward to finalize the household list. The nurse will go to a separate lodging by curfew. 2 ladies from the foreign side will sit nearest the bedchamber door. The tutor nods and accepts the paper. A household is policy in small rooms. At midday, the city watches the couple walk the great hall. The chair does not move nearer the dais. The musicians play. The groom speaks of roads, ports, and stores. He thanks the bishop for the morning's order. He toasts the Queen Mother. He does not mention the merchant credit. He does not mention the closed packet. He smiles at the correct times. A smile can hide unfinished business. The clerk climbs the stair to the archive. He signs his name in the delivery book. He lays the sealed packet in a chest with other hard questions. He enters the hour and the witness. He writes nothing more. The lid closes. The key returns to the chain at his belt. He walks away with empty hands and a clear duty. Paper waits longer than men. In the afternoon, the steward reads the household ordinances. He sets hours for meals and prayers. He sets rules for petitions. He limits private letters to set days. The wardrobe clerk itemizes the gifts as property of the crown. The princess listens. She knows each word narrows or widens the path under her feet. She signs the list with a steady hand. Obedience can be public. Resistance must be private. At sunset, the convoy that brought her scatters to their billets. The captains see to the chests. The tutors check new lessons. The proxy departs with quiet thanks. The bishop returns to his chapter. The treasurer counts sums again. The Queen Mother sits with her council and speaks of winter roads. No one speaks the word inside the sealed packet. Silence is a choice with a cost. Night returns. Lanterns burn in the passage. By law, witnesses remain within call. The bedposts are checked, the sheets marked, the hour noted. The steward records all without flourish. The door closes on the privy chamber. We will not follow past that door. This tale is not about that right. It is about the exchange that made it possible. Some doors stay shut for a reason. The morning comes. The court notes nothing unusual. The Bruges letter keeps the treasurer calm. The winter payment will move. The chair at table will move when sums and seasons allow. The packet stays sealed in the chest, a tool kept for a day that may never arrive. The princess begins her life as a wife in a foreign court. She learns faces, names, and limits. She practices the greeting for each rank without error. In these halls, precision keeps peace. Now return to the threshold. You stand in the side passage. Beeswax and damp wool fill the air. You hear the scratch of a quill as the steward writes the hour. You understand the lesson. The darkest secret was never one night. It was the contract that made a child into a boarder. If you want more of these hidden mechanics of power, stay with this series and subscribe for the next chapter.